Picture this. In May 2025, the Israeli government made a move so bold, so controversial, that experts from Washington to Brussels, and even Tel Aviv itself, are still reeling. 22 new Israeli settlements, green-lit in the heart of the occupied West Bank. The ink on the approval documents isn't even dry, yet the world is asking, has the dream of a Palestinian state finally been crushed? Or are we witnessing a gamble with catastrophic consequences? Imagine a chessboard, but every piece that moves changes the rules. In the West Bank, that's exactly what's happening. But before we dig deeper, let's rewind. How did we get here? Why is the expansion of settlements such a loaded issue, igniting passions, fears, and international outrage? For over 5 decades, the West Bank has been the epicenter of one of the world's most intractable conflicts. In 1967, after the Six-Day War, Israel seized the territory, launching the first phase of what would become an enormous and controversial settlement project. At first, Israel's leaders insisted these outposts were about security, defense, they claimed. But as years passed, the settlements started to look less like military buffers, and more like a march of civilians, farms, shopping malls, and red-roofed homes stretching across hills that Palestinians call home. Fast forward to today. According to the Israeli group Peace Now, over 700,000 Israeli settlers now live beyond the 1967 borders, roughly 10% of Israel's Jewish population. But international law is clear. Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, ratified after World War II, explicitly forbids an occupying power from transferring parts of its own civilian population into occupied territory. The International Court of Justice and the United Nations Security Council have both said, repeatedly and unequivocally, that Israel's settlements in the West Bank are illegal. Yet on the ground, the picture is far murkier and far more explosive. Settlement growth has not been steady, but surging. In 2023 alone, Israeli authorities advanced plans for over 30,000 housing units in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. What does that really mean? Imagine the construction and arrival of entire new towns, some on land where Palestinian families have lived for generations. But it's not just about new buildings, it's about geography and politics. The settlements aren't randomly sprinkled. They're carefully positioned, slicing the West Bank into fragments, enclosing Palestinian towns and villages, and, some say, making a future Palestinian state all but impossible. In May 2025, with the formal approval of 22 new settlements, the Israeli government has, in the words of journalist Elisha Ben Kiman, moved a few steps from declaring this area as Israeli territory. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich was even blunter. Next step, sovereignty. That means not just de facto control, but potentially de jure annexation, a move many fear would shatter the last hopes of a two-state solution. It's not just a matter of law or politics, it's a matter of daily life. For tens of thousands of Palestinians, new settlements mean more checkpoints, less access to farmland, schools, and jobs. The UN Human Rights Office has voiced serious concerns about the legal changes accompanying this new wave of settlements, while the European Union calls the expansion flatly illegal. But why are these settlements happening now? What's behind the Israeli government's push? Defense Minister Israel Katz laid it bare. This is a strategic move that prevents the establishment of a Palestinian state that would endanger Israel. For some Israelis, settlements are a shield. They believe a Palestinian state would be a direct threat. For others, it's about ideologies going back millennia and a biblical claim to the land. On the other side, the anger is palpable. Nabil Abu Rudaina, spokesperson for the Palestinian president, called the move a dangerous escalation and a challenge to international legitimacy. Hamas official Sami Abu Zuhri echoed the fear, describing the new settlements as part of the war led by Netanyahu against the Palestinian people. Emotions are running higher than ever, and it's not just rhetoric. On the ground, violence is surging. In the past year, a spike in settler attacks has forced Palestinian communities to abandon homes and farmland. Ali, a farmer near Nablus, says, "I grew up here. Now I can't even reach my olive trees without risking my life." The implications extend far beyond local hardship. Increasingly, experts warn, Israel's settlement policy is not just shaping the future of Palestinians and Israelis, it's setting the course for the entire Middle East. Lior Amihai of Peace now puts it bluntly, the Israeli government no longer pretends otherwise. The annexation of the occupied territories and expansion of settlements is its central goal. But why now? Why this sudden acceleration? 22 new settlements at once? The answer lies in politics, ideology, and perhaps a sense that the window for international pushback is closing. The U.S., long the broker of peace hopes, is deeply distracted by its own political crises. Europe, preoccupied with security threats closer to home, can do little more than issue stern statements. The United Nations, too, seems powerless amid legal pronouncements that go unheeded. And yet there's a sense, among supporters and opponents alike, that this latest expansion is different. It feels like crossing a line. The plan includes establishing completely new towns, but also reviving settlements dismantled in 2005 like Homesh and Sanur. These weren't just cleared out on a whim, they were part of a previous deal, a gesture to the peace process. Their return signals to many the end of any serious negotiation. The consequences for Palestinian society are profound. With land parceled, communities divided, and basic economics undermined by movement restrictions and land seizures, hopes for prosperity are withering. Economic development becomes a distant dream for many young Palestinians, fueling anger, hopelessness, and sometimes radicalization. International voices from the UK to the UN are raising alarms. Hamish Falconer, British Foreign Office Minister, didn't mince words. The move was a deliberate obstacle to Palestinian statehood. Tor Wennesland, the UN's top Middle East envoy, said settlements systematically erode the viability of a Palestinian state. Yet for the Israeli right-wing government, the calculus seems clear. More settlements equal more bargaining power, more security, more facts on the ground. Critics see it differently, a slow-motion disaster that could spark yet another regional explosion. All this brings us to a grim assessment from global policy analysts. If the two-state solution is truly dead, what comes next? Are we headed for a one-state reality, where millions of Palestinians live under Israeli rule, without equal rights or hope for independence? Or is this a recipe for perpetual unrest and violence, with the world watching helplessly? As the bulldozers move in and international condemnation mounts, even veteran observers confess, the old playbook has been tossed out. The future of Israel and Palestine, and perhaps the wider Middle East, is hovering at a crossroads as uncertain and fraught as ever. But as the dust rises over the hills of the West Bank, one question hangs in the air. Is Israel's gamble on settlements a masterstroke of security, or the beginning of an unsolvable crisis? And what happens if the world, distracted and divided, simply lets it play out? The answer to these questions could determine not just the fate of two nations, but the entire balance of power across the region. And as we'll see in the next part, the stakes, political, economic, and moral, are only getting higher. Where do we go from here? To truly grasp the future unleashed by Israel's approval of 22 new settlements in the West Bank, we have to look beyond headlines and step into the everyday reality that is rapidly being rewritten. In the coming years, these settlements won't simply remain dots on a map. They'll trigger domino effects across society, politics, and the daily lives of millions. Let's begin with the most immediate and visible scenario, a relentless expansion, making the two-state solution not just difficult, but virtually impossible. As more Israeli families move into the West Bank, entire Palestinian communities will face growing isolation. Roads once open will be swallowed by restricted military zones. Economic survival for Palestinians, never easy, will shrink even further. According to a 2025 UN Human Rights Office report, Jordan Valley farmers already face a nearly 60% drop in income due to settler expansion and new barriers to market. Imagine this across dozens of communities, each encircled and fragmented by the new settlements. Tor Wennesland, the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East, recently warned, each new settlement further entrenches the occupation and systematically erodes the viability of a Palestinian state. His words echo not just through international conference halls, but in the shattered routines of Palestinian shopkeepers, teachers, and parents. For them, every additional settlement means another checkpoint, another lost job, another night spent wondering if their home will survive the coming months. Now, zooming out, what does this mean for Israel itself? On one hand, some leaders see expansion as a strategic shield. More settlements mean more Israeli security, or so the logic goes. Defense Minister Israel Katz declared, "This is a strategic move that prevents the establishment of a Palestinian state that would endanger Israel." His statement underscores a government mindset that sees geography as destiny. Lock in as much land now, and the future will be safer for Israelis. But history is rarely so simple. By spreading Israeli citizens deep into the West Bank, the government is also creating new flashpoints for violence. Settler-Palestinian clashes over land, water, and movement are already rising. In parts of northern Samaria and the Jordan Valley, midnight attacks and retaliations have doubled in just the past year. Human rights organizations like Peace Now warn that, as these incidents grow, the risk of a wider conflict, what some fear could be a third intifada, is stronger than at any point since the 2000s. And here's a brutal reality. The international community, often vocal in its condemnation, faces diminishing leverage. Sanctions, statements, and even UN resolutions so far have done little to stem the tide. The legal machinery, the International Court of Justice, for instance, has issued advisory opinions and clear condemnations, but enforcement is another matter. Elisha Ben-Kiman, a prominent Israeli journalist, put it starkly: Israel is a few steps from declaring this area as Israeli territory. So, what future awaits if nothing interrupts this trajectory? Experts outline several scenarios. The most likely, if recent trends continue, is slow-motion annexation, new laws, more infrastructure, and eventually, the formal declaration of Israeli sovereignty over most of the West Bank. If this happens, Palestinians could be left with disconnected enclaves, archipelagos of restricted autonomy, surrounded by Israeli military and settlements. This would spell the end of any realistic two-state solution. But history throws curveballs. There's a slim, persistent hope that surging international outrage or grassroots peace efforts could trigger a new negotiation channel. In one scenario, mounting economic and political pressure, especially as settler violence and humanitarian crises intensify, could force a settlement freeze or even a rollback, as happened in Gaza in 2005. It's a faint glimmer, but not impossible. After all, in the past, seemingly intractable conflicts have been transformed by popular mobilization or bold international diplomacy. However, most analysts are blunt. Such a reversal would require unprecedented unity among world powers, as well as a dramatic shift in Israeli domestic politics, neither of which seems likely now. The more probable alternative is normalization of the status quo, with the world adjusting to a permanent one-state reality, albeit a deeply unequal one. As the research report chillingly notes, the two-state solution is dead. Long live the one-state reality, where equal rights, not ethnic supremacy, must prevail, or perpetual conflict is guaranteed. Let's pause here and consider the human cost, a cost that often gets buried beneath diplomatic language and political maps. For ordinary Palestinians, each new settlement means more than just lost land. It signifies lost dreams, the school a child cannot reach, the olive grove bulldozed, the wedding that must be held under curfew. For Israelis, too, the future is shadowed by uncertainty. Many worry that permanent control over millions of disenfranchised Palestinians is not only morally fraught, but a recipe for endless insecurity and isolation on the world stage. So why does this matter to us, and what practical lessons can viewers take from this unfolding tragedy? First, it's a powerful reminder that rhetoric and legalistic maneuvering can reshape lives as surely as bombs or bulldozers. Policies announced in distant capitals ripple outwards, becoming walls, checkpoints, and bitter realities on the ground. For anyone interested in global affairs, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is both cautionary tale and call to vigilance. It shows how protracted injustice fuels cycles of violence and despair that can last generations. Second, these events highlight the crucial role of informed public opinion. The more the world tunes out, the freer regional actors feel to act without consequences. It's not just up to diplomats or politicians. Media scrutiny and grassroots awareness can shift the debate, even when formal levers of power seem jammed. Third, and perhaps most important, it's a stark lesson in the limits and possibilities of international law. Even when the legal framework seems clear, enforcement depends on collective will and courage. As ordinary citizens, we can support organizations working on the ground for peace, speak up in our communities, or press our governments to uphold their stated principles. But let's be honest, optimism is in short supply. The approval of 22 new settlements is not just another policy, it's a point of no return, according to many experts. It signals a government that no longer even pays lip service to compromise. As Bezalel Smotrich, Israel's finance minister, put it, next step, sovereignty. A message as defiant as it is final. Yet history is full of unexpected turns. Even as some close the door on peace, new generations grow up, new voices rise, and what seems impossible today can become reality tomorrow. The lesson for viewers everywhere? Don't underestimate the power of persistence. Historical change, whether for better or worse, is often the product of ordinary people refusing to look away. In conclusion, let's return to the question we started with. Is this the end of the two-state solution? By every available measure, legal, geographic, demographic, the answer, sadly, appears to be yes. The patchwork of settlements now makes a contiguous Palestinian state almost unworkable. The future, unless something dramatic changes, points toward a single, deeply divided state, one where rights, citizenship, and security will remain bitterly contested. But what fate awaits Israelis and Palestinians if the world cannot intervene? The risk is clear: a future of perpetual tension, isolated enclaves, and endless cycles of retaliation. Some see it as the institutionalization of apartheid, others as the seeds of new forms of resistance. The only real certainty is that, absent bold international action and fearless local leadership, this cycle will deepen. And here's a secret fact, rarely discussed in official statements. While political leaders debate borders and settlements, a quiet but growing network of Israeli and Palestinian activists is forging new, people-to-people ties across the divide. In underground schools, shared business ventures, and clandestine peace forums, they're creating alternative visions of coexistence. Their existence is a fragile hope, but one that persists, even against the bleakest odds. So, what can you do? Don't just watch from afar. Educate yourself, share what you've learned, question narratives, and support initiatives that bridge divides. The story of the West Bank may seem far away, but the lessons about justice, power, and the enduring human spirit are universal. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel for deep dive analysis like this, and share your thoughts in the comments.